Shalom, shalom. Yahweh Shema Shabbarakatah. All right. Hope y'all enjoyed the little background intro music to pop off things. And straighten up this table. All right, shalom. All right, so before we get started, we're going to hop right into today's lesson. And as always, we have to give praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS, better known as Great Millstone, who taught me this 144% truth. And peace and salutations unto the elect, all right, of the house of Israel, all right? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that make up the 12 tribes of Israel, right? And also to the confusion of faces that be like the speckled bird that are scattered across the four corners of the earth. To you, I say shalom. So a few days ago on one of my lives, I had a couple of individuals ask me to do a lesson on the discovery, or not so much the discovery, but proving that the so-called Native Americans and the so-called Latinos, all right, and when we say Latinos, all right, we're not just talking about the so-called Mexicans, but also within that group, the Guatemalans, the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Colombians, all of them as well also makes up part of the what they will consider the 10 lost tribes, all right? And I got a real treat for y'all today, and I put together some different things, videos, some articles you want to hear from actual native descent people. You're also going to hear from what they would deem as the speckled bird, all right? Because we always tell you guys this thing of ours, it has nothing to do with the color of your skin, all right? And you have to understand the difference, because you're going to have Israelites out there that's coming into the truth, but they're being led away straight, all right? Because a lot of people are still stuck on this illusion, thinking that we are a cult, calling us Black Hebrew Israelites or BOI, which there's no such thing. Okay, because the true man of the Lord of Yahweh Shai Shai, we always tell you guys that Israel is like the speckled bird. Okay, so because we are scattered across the four corners of the earth, we have mixed the holy seed within these other heathen nations. So a lot of us are not going to look like me or darker than me. You're going to have Israelites that's going to be as dark as Wesley Snipes. You're going to have Israelites that's going to be as light as the rapper and reality TV show, not reality, but TV show actor Ice-T. All right, roughly paraphrased to be, lack of better term. So a lot of you guys have to stop with this nonsense of thinking that just because you see somebody that's so-called black or native or whatever, that they are the true indigenous. Well, I got news for you. Those native indigenous people will be a lighter shade color than what I am. Just because for somebody to be native indigenous, they don't need to be totally of dark skin. All right. And the reason why you guys are so damn stuck on that just foolishness is because your white zaddy, Esau Edom, has taught you that bullcrap through his false pseudoscience. OK, the same nation of people that told you either come under the three classifications, either Negroid, Mongoloid, and I forget the third one. OK. So we need to erase all of that. And I say time and time again, the scriptures speak for itself that you must subdue your own understanding. Part of you subduing your own understanding is you need to wipe away claim that you were ever taught, even going as far back as school, even your damn parents, because they don't even know any better. They don't do their research. All right. So, yeah. So what are we going to do is we're going to go into some books, all right, where you can actually download these books off of PDF, and you can also get the actual hard copy or paper copy off of Amazon, all right, if you guys like to do that as well. Real quick, Yeah, see, it's still not working, man. I don't understand. I gotta, maybe somebody can look that up for me on how I get my Q&A box to be working. Cause man, I don't know what's going on, man. I want y'all to be able to send me some questions and stuff. But if they ain't got this thing working, man, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why they shutting me down like that. But anyway, nevertheless, so before we get started, let me know in the comment section how everybody's doing. Let me know if you guys can hear my voice okay. All right, because I'm going to try to get through this quickly and less painfully, because I know a lot of y'all probably got to go to sleep later on, get up for work the next day. So I'm going to try to keep this short, under an hour or an hour tops or whatever the case may be. But we got a lot to cover, and Yahweh Ratazah, Lord willing, after I cover everything, you guys are edified. All right. And also note down everything that you see, because everything that I'm going to bring out, all right, all you got to do is just go back and do your own studies, right? As I always say, never take my word for anything based off the factual information that I bring out. It's up to you to take what I bring out and to go further. All right. And we always teach that. All right. No, just because we out here and we're showing you everything. OK, that's good. But what are you doing with that? Are you taking that and you're furthering it? Are you actually with due diligence taking it a step further to connect the dots? All right. So that's part of 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15. Study to show thyself approved. All right. Because it's not just about studying the word, but you also have to cross-reference, which is a word I always say time and time again. So what we're going to do before I share my screen. OK, so if you tap on your profile, you should see a Q&A box on your profile. Click on it. Yeah, I did that, but I actually took it off because I thought when I put it up on my profile, that's the main reason why on my actual live, it doesn't turn on. So maybe you're right. Maybe after this, I have to go into it and be able to turn it on. So thank you for that, squad. Appreciate that. Shalom to you, by the way. All right, so let's start off with Genesis real quick, the 49th chapter. Okay. Genesis, the 49th chapter, because what a lot of people don't understand. All right. Before Jacob was on his deathbed. All right. Genesis, the 49th chapter actually goes into the latter times that was going to befall all 12 tribes. All right. And you can get this in the book of Genesis, the 49th chapter, which I'm just going to do a brief read through. All right. I'm not going to pretty much do a full breakdown on it. I'll do that in a later video, or I'll put that up on my YouTube channel if you guys want that full breakdown. But let's turn our attention to Genesis, the 49th chapter. All right. Now, remember, the context of today's lessons is we're going to be focusing on, all right, the so-called Latinos, all right, and Native Americans, all right. Like I said, I'll do a deeper in-depth of the other tribes and who makes up those tribes. But for right now, the main focus is on the Latinos and the Native Americans. So nobody gets, confused. So for anybody who come out and say, oh, well, what about, Reuben and all of them? That's not what we're talking about today. We'll deal with Reuben a different time. We're going to be focusing on solely the Latinos and Native Americans. So we're going to start in Genesis, the 49th chapter. And I want to start at verse. We're going to start at verse 14, dealing with the Latinos, mainly Issachar, right? Genesis 49 and verse 14. It says, Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. OK, and we know that Issachar today makes up the so-called Mexicans. Now, what does it mean when Jacob said to Issachar, his son, one of his sons out of the 12 tribes, that Issachar is like a strong ass couching down between two burdens? Because when you look at the so-called Mexicans today, all right, the burden that's heavily on them is the work ethic. OK, they're known for working up to between 10 to 14 hours a day. They're one of the hardest working tribes that make up the 12 tribes of Israel. All right. That's why throughout history, even in movies, they'll be the first ones up at 4 or 5 a.m. OK. And they'll be out, especially down in places like Arizona or down south somewhere, Texas. They'll be the first ones up with their tool sets and everything, hoping that people who need handy people work, you know, whether it's to work on the tiles or the roof or whatever the case may be, they're known for that. That's the burden that's on them. You understand what I mean? So when it says that Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens, that's the two burdens. All right. Hey, V Harris, Shalom, brother. It's all good, brother. If you got earphones or whatever, brother, I don't know if they allow you to get away with that at work. But yeah, if you got earphones, brother, just tuck the phone away and you can listen through the earphones, brother. If you can do that. I don't know how your job, you know, I don't know if Esau be on that nonsense. But yeah, brother, that's what normally some people do. They'll just put the earplugs in and listen to me as they work. But anyway, long story short, let's continue moving. Genesis 49, verse 15. All right. It says, and he saw that rest was good and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear and became a servant unto tribute. So Issachar, this is the later prophecy. Issachar became a servant unto tribute, meaning what? Everything that he does, he's always serving other people, mainly the so-called white man, Esau, Edom. This is why I say time and time again, the Latinos don't get enough credit for what they do in terms of landscaping, building, infrastructure, and all that. All right, because you'll have the so-called Negroes, which are Judites. All right, the main tribe of the 12 tribes, Judah, the Negroes. Yes, they helped build America, too. OK, but when pertaining to Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33, where it says both Judah and Ephraim, OK, meaning both the northern and southern kingdom were oppressed together. OK, that was during the transatlantic slave trade, mainly started firstly when Cristobal Colon, which is his real name, OK, now turned to Christopher Columbus, who you guys know him as and who you were taught. All right, based off your studies when you went to school. All right, basically, when he traveled the land, which America at that time was known as the New World. All right, when he stumbled upon the land. All right, he actually found the natives. OK, mainly he found Gad, which was the Native Americans, which we're going to touch on. All right. And basically he took them and enslaved them and brought them back. And then fast forward right around 1619, he went and gathered Judah, Benjamin, and Levi that were over there in West Africa, which is known as Ghana today. So when they brought those slave ships, and all you got to do is look up the I think it's called the Jewish. What is it called? The slave ship manifest, the slave ship manifest. And anybody can Google this and you will see the native. You'll see the native names on those manifest, as well as the Negroes. And you'll see they had Hebrew names. All right. And some of them had what they call Moorish names. All right. Because a lot of our people. All right. They practice Islamic faith during the Dark Ages. All right. And everything I'm saying, you can go and look it up. All right. Everything I'm bringing it out. So let's read it again. Genesis 49, verse 14. Issachar is a strong ass couching down between two burdens. And he saw that rest was good and the land that it was pleasant, and bowed his shoulder to bear. OK, and became a servant unto tribute. So part of Issachar's punishment overall. OK, what is overall just being a heavy burden. He's always constantly working, never gets ahead in life, constantly having to be on a run and stuff, because look what's going on in South America with the dictatorship and stuff like that. All right. So, see this person here, anybody who has that idolatry in their video talk. So explain, how is this idolatry? What makes this idolatry? Somebody put that in the comment section. I'm not even going to entertain that. But nevertheless, so Issachar, the so-called Mexicans today, all right, their number one burden is the workload that they carry amongst themselves. They can never get ahead. That's why we look at places like, different places, South America and everything, where majority of them are coming up from. When you go and look into the villages and stuff like that, it's always like they have it hard. And that's why we tell people, You have to go back to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, because it tells you plainly that the curses that was going to befall all 12 tribes, not just Issachar, the curses that was going to befall all of us will be signs. Okay, which when you go into that word sign in the Hebrew and stuff, it goes back to the word evidence, right? Okay, it goes back to the word evidence. All right. No, what you can do, all right, you can go on your own platform and explain. You're not going to come up on here, explaining anything on my platform. The Bible is clear. All right. You're not supposed to build your foundation. You're not supposed to build on another man's foundation. That's what the scripture says. So go on your own platform. And if you want to give more detail pertaining to the tribe of Issachar, do so on your own platform. Don't come over here with that nonsense. All right. So moving forward. Now let's drop down in Genesis chapter 49. We're going to drop down to verse 19. Now we're going to get the tribe of Gad, which is the Native American. All right. Now it says, verse 19, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Because remember, when so-called Christopher Columbus, when he came to the Americas, all right, and they stumbled upon the Native Americans, all right, when the Spaniards came over, what a lot of people fail to realize is that's how they obviously were overcome, right? Now, there's countless of movies. I forget one movie in particular, which is very good to watch. But there's a movie where they show you when the Native Americans tried to make a treaty, because when the colonizers came all the way up to the west coast of America, which is California today, you had a lot of chief tribes out that way. The problem is they were trying to gain control of California. So what they did was they ended up pretending to make a peace treaty with the so-called Native Americans. And one of the chiefs of the tribes came out, sat down with the so-called white man and said, all right, look, this is what we'll do and everything. This land could be shared amongst us or whatever. But, knowing Esau, all right, and his cunning ways, right, he ended up tricking the Native Americans, and then they went and just slaughtered them just to take over the land. And there's an actual movie on that, all right, showing you that even Hollywood, all right, they understand who we are. They know exactly who we are. All right. So that's the two tribes that we're going to focus on today. Now, what we're going to start off with in history, we got to start off with Cristobal Colon, who you guys know as to be Christopher Columbus. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to turn my screen, and then we're going to read from a book by Ronald Sanders called Lost Tribes in the Promised Land. Okay. Well, hey, brother, you probably got muted because, you wasn't in order. So if you're not in order, you're going to get muted and blocked again. And if you have a problem, just keep it moving. Oh, well, that was quick. All right. So let me swap my screen and let me know if you guys are able to see. And here we go. All right. So let me just scroll in there like that. And hopefully you guys can see that. All right. Everybody can see. Hopefully that's clear. So this is what we're going to read is an account. This is a PDF form from an author named Ronald Sanders. All right. And basically, this is a very good book. This is a very good piece of historical evidence that anybody can have access to as further proof, proving that the natives that were in the land of the Americas, not just North America, but also South America. Ronald Sanders goes on to tell you historical evidence pertaining to Christopher Columbus, which they keep out of schools because they don't want you to really know. All right. Nor will you actually find this book in a library because they removed it on purpose. OK, so we're going to start in this paragraph here. All right. And just bear with me as I take my time to go through this. It says a striking element in Columbus' geographical religiosity is his intense and abiding interest in the fourth or second book of Esdras. Now, for those of you who don't know, he's referring to the Apocrypha, the 14 books that were taken out on purpose. Okay, I can't stress that enough. It says the two apocryphal books of Esdras, okay, purport to be additional writings by and about the Old Testament Ezra. But the second or fourth book is a piece of full-fledged Hellenistic apocalyptic writing that was often regarded with suspicion by the church and just as often embraced by, heterodox. Now, what you have to keep in mind, okay, let's not get simple-minded here. When it says suspicion by the church, you have to understand during the Renaissance period, our people were put into subjection, all right? And pertaining to Wisdom of Solomon, the 14th chapter, what ended up happening was when you go and read that chapter, starting at particularly verse 15, it clearly tells you on how the Catholic Church became about. Yes, it's in the Holy Scriptures. OK, all of that history is there. That's one of many reasons why they removed it, because when the family, the Borgia family, when they finally came into power, they read the writings. So they had to do away with that. OK, it's a lot of things that they covered that they are not telling you through history. All right. So I just wanted to point that out. Moving on, it says Augustine have given guarded approval to Esdras prophetic claims, and much was always to be made of this by the latter's defenders, including Columbus. In the marginal notes to Columbus' copy of Diali is a relatively lengthy discourse on 2nd Esdras chapter 6, verse 42. All right. So let's scroll down. Let's come over here. And it reads, upon the third day, thou didst command that the waters should be gathered up in the seventh part of the earth, 6 parts that thou hast dried up, and kept them, to the intent that of these some being planted of the Most High and tilled might serve thee. Right? It says, who is this? You out of here. You're lost. All right. It says, this was often to be cited by Columbus, who argued, this guy, nobody said anything about Columbus being lost. Ignorance. Salakia family. All right, let's keep it moving. It says this was often to be cited by Columbus, who argued that since only 1/7 of the world was water and good deal more dry land, that yet as known remained to be discovered overseas. But Columbus seems to have found more than Esdras, that since Salakia seems to have been found more than Esdras than just this geographical argument. All right. It says here is one of the things he writes about this verse in his marginal notes. Now, keep in mind, OK, you can find these marginal notes. I believe he has a book called Christopher Columbus Memoirs, which anybody can Google and look it up for themselves. But this prophecy is not accepted by the reprobate Jews, yet it has been accepted by the innumerable ones amongst them who have believed in the Gospels. OK, and the ones who he's talking about, Apostle Peter referred to them being as ethnos. OK, which when you look up that word ethnos in the Greek is referring to a particular nation of the 12 tribes. All right, who were called Gentiles. All right, that's why the gospel had to be preached across the 4 corners of the earth, because the rest of the 9 tribes that were scattered, they were known as ethnos when you do your research and study. Keep it moving. It says this sudden. All right. Salakia, let me go back. It says Israel has thus been split into 2 branches. All right. Meaning that you had the southern kingdom and then you had the northern kingdom. That's where you get your 2 branches. It goes on to say a division predicted as inevitable by the prophet Samuel to King Saul. All right. And this is going back to the excerpt in 2 Kings, the 17th chapter, which we want to grab later on after this. All right. It says the reprobate Jews themselves hold Esdras, that is the Old Testament Ezra, as a canonical authority. Right. Now, let's drop down and let's see. I want to grab real quick. Let's get straight to the point. Yeah, We're gonna come over here now. Here it is right here. All right, let's get straight to the point. At the top of the page, it says, but meanwhile, the apocryphal Esdras, which was, by the way, a book of special importance to many new Christians, has a good deal to say about the original lost tribes, and this could not have passed lightly under Columbus's somewhat mystical gaze. Surely he saw special meanings for his own times and for himself in this passage in 2nd Esdras chapter 13, verses 2 and 5. It says, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. And I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. That man that's talking about is talking about our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai. Okay. And when he turned his countenance to look, all the things trembled that were seen unto him. All right. And this is going into when during World War III, when those missiles are popped off. All right. Everybody going to look up because they're going to see a so-called black man with the heavenly hosts that's going to crack the sky and to gather his elect from the four winds, pertaining to Matthew chapter 24. All right, starting around the 30th verse. But moreover, it says, and whenever the voice went out from his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice. Why? Because he's coming back in that mothership, that chariot, okay, who the world ignorantly calls UFOs or UAPs. All right. And yes, they're going to be lighting everybody's asses up who is not found written in the book. You're going to be utterly destroyed. All right. It says, like as the earth faileth when it filleth the fire. And after this, here's the point. I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Why? Because Esau and his military. All right. They're going to try to pretty much stop Yahweh Shai. That's why when former President Donald Trump was in office, why do you think the United States of America started a space army? What's the point of you having a space army in space? All right. If you don't know that there's something that's coming back. All right. So this is why it's evident that we are real close, because they know what's about to come. But anyway, not to digress, it goes on to say, but this warlike multitude is subdued by the man from the sea. And then another multitude, a peaceable one, comes to him, whereof some were glad, some were sorry, some of them were bound. Now, this is the same account that John the Revelator saw on the Isle of Patmos when you read Revelations chapter 7, and I believe verse 9, where it says a large, great multitude who he could not number. All right. That's why we start off with our lessons every time we come live or out in the highways and byways to the speckled bird, the hopeful elect, because it's always been about the elect of Israel who is scattered. That's the peaceable multitude that is going into. OK, but reading on, it says here, whereof some were glad, some were sorry, some of them were bound, and some brought of them that were offered, that is, brought him slaves from their midst. How could the exaltedly visionary Columbus not have seen an image of himself in this? Certainly after his voyages of American discovery, but perhaps even earlier after making some voyages to Guinea coast during his young years in Portugal. If Columbus did indeed glimpse himself in the role of the man from the sea, then Esdras' identification of the peaceable multitude takes on special significance. All right. Now, it's going to give you the account, which any of y'all who have the King James 1611 version, all you got to do is turn to 2nd Esdras, the 13th chapter, and read verses 40 through 42, which we're about to read now. And it says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hoshea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country. And here's the point, where never mankind dwelt. Now, this part is very important because a lot of you so-called Negroes, OK, when you're being taught, you have bad comprehension skills. What does it mean where never mankind dwelt? You have to take into account when you read the history, only the eastern part of the world was known. OK, the Americas at that time in the ancient world, no mankind were ever dwelling over that part of the land until when the northern tribe, the northern kingdom, Salakia, all right, when they counseled together to leave, all right, the bondage being under the Syrian Empire, okay, that's the only time the Americas were inhabited because they were the first people to go over there. And it's going to tell you, it says that they might there, meaning that land, keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. OK, it says Esdras' interpretation of the peaceable multitude then goes on to say that the lost tribes entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river, which they were able to ford because the Most High stopped the flow. OK, and it reads on. It says stop the flow of the waters for them, and then traveled another year and a half to a region called Arsareth, evidently a Greek corruption of the Hebrew Aretz or Areth, another country. OK, now to prove that, I have here on deck from the Jewish Encyclopedia.com, from the small hatters, the ones who claiming to be the real people in the Holy Land today, which they're not. All right. It says here, Arsareth by Morris Jastrow Jr. Kaufman Corler. The name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes of Israel will dwell, observing the laws of Moses until the time of restoration, according to 2nd Esdras 13th chapter. OK, Columbus identified America with this land. You see that? Even they know. OK, even they know what's going on. But see what, pertaining to Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 says what? My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. See, you so-called Negroes will sit up here all day and claim to be Egyptian, Kemet, and all that stuff, not even knowing that the so-called white man has covered up your true nationality. Pertaining to Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4. All right. Thou shalt discontinue from thine heritage. And that's exactly what happened to us. Right. So let's continue. Let's go back. All right. Here we go. So it reads on. It says, there they were to remain until the latter time. And now, when they shall begin to come, the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through. Therefore sawest thou the multitude with peace. We are already familiar with much of this terrain. As for the man of the sea, Esdras identifies him, 2nd Esdras chapter 13, verse 26, as he whom the Most High, the highest, had kept a great season, which by his own self shall deliver his creature. In other words, the Messiah. OK, now, when you read, we're going to go, all right, to 2 Kings chapter 17 to prove, because this is all prophecy. All right. 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 6 says what? In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria, took Samaria, and carried Israel away to Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Harbar by the river of Gazan and in the cities of the Medes. Now, notice it says here in the title, why Israel fell. It says, for so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord Yahweh their power, which had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared of their gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord Yahweh cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against Yahweh their power, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And they set them up images in groves, in every high hill, and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom Yahweh carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord Yahweh to anger. It says, for they served idols, whereof the Lord Yahweh has said unto them, ye shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord Yahweh testified against Israel and against Judah, northern and southern kingdom, by all the prophets and by all the seers, which seer is another word for prophet, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, just like we're telling you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today to repent, right? It says, turn ye from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law, which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants, the prophets. Verse 14, notwithstanding, they would not hear, but harden their necks, right? Like the scripture says, our people are stiff-necked. That's in the book of Baruch. You're hard-headed, like the necks of their fathers that did not believe in the Lord Yahweh their power. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers and his testimonies, which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Lord Yahweh had charged them that they should not do like them. All right. Going back to Jeremiah, the 10th, Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, verse 2, learn not the way of the heathen. Right. So when you drop down, let's drop down to verse 20. It says, and the Lord Yahweh rejected all the seed of Israel and afflicted them and delivered them into the hand of spoilers until he had cast them out of his sight. Thus, this begins the prophecy in Deuteronomy chapter 32, where Moses said that he was going to provoke Israel to a people that was considered a no nation. This was the no nation. It started with the northern kingdom. This is why everybody gets confused when they read Paul's epistles, because in the book of Hosea, it tells you that even though Israel is the sand of the sea, yet a remnant shall return. And in the place where it was said unto them, meaning the places where they were scattered, okay, in the places where it was said unto them, ye are not my people. This is what it was talking about. This is where the history is. You see, the churches, they'll teach you, oh, the no people was talking about the other nations that can come back, and we are now all the adoption of sons, or they'll call themselves spiritual Israel. No, this is what it was talking about. The northern kingdom was the no people. So when the Messiah came on the scene, okay, he had to come to his own, which was the southern kingdom. That's why it tells you. Let me go back up. Let's see here. Here it is right here. Verse 19. It says, also Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh their power, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made, because it was a separation. That's where you get the two branches from. So the prophecy stated that in Zechariah, the 12th chapter, which let's grab that so you guys can understand real quick. All right. Because a lot of people don't get it. Yeah, Khan. Zechariah 12:7. The Lord Yahweh also shall save the tents of Judah first. Who is Judah? Judah represents Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the southern kingdom. So when the Bible says he came in unto his own, what tribe did Yahushua come out of, pertaining to Hebrews chapter 7, verse 14? He came out of the tribe of Judah. That's why he told the disciples, go not into the Gentiles, but go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So the gospel had to be preached to the tents of Judah first. That's why you'll have people to say, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know the Bible. He came in unto his people and the Jews didn't accept him, because they think the Jews is talking about all 12 tribes. That's not what it's talking about. Only the 3 tribes, which consisted of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they were known as the Jews. Hello, you still had the other 9 tribes. The other 9 tribes make up the Gentiles. They were called ethnos in the New Testament. They were the people that was going to provoke the southern kingdom to jealousy because they were the ones that were of a no people. That's what they don't teach you. Right? So going back, now that we understand, right? When you drop down, okay, it goes on to tell you what ended up happening, because this is how you got the heathens in Samaria. All right, because it tells you that the king of Assyria, he brought in the heathens to fill up all these other places. That's why when Yahushua came on the scene, all right, and he was in these areas as Samaria and everything, now you understand why he told the disciples, don't go into the way of Samaritans and the Gentiles, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, the ones who they knew were Israelites, because you had heathens dwelling, all right, in these areas. And the disciples at that time, they could not discern who were Israelites because the holy seed had been mixed. And yeah, see, Brother Willis, he's on point. And now to prove that, right, to prove that the holy seed had been mixed, let's go to 1st Esdras chapter 8. All the way down. All the way down. Yep. Now watch. This is one of the many reasons why they took the Apocrypha out. 1st Esdras chapter 8, verse 69. It says, the nation of Israel, the princes, the priests, and the Levites have not put away from them the strange people of the land, nor the pollutions of the Gentiles. All right. Now, when you get that word Gentiles, it's not ethnos, it's goyim in the Hebrew, which is actually talking about the real Gentiles who are not Israelites. That's why y'all get confused on the New Testament. And it's going to tell you who those Gentiles are, to which the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perishites, the Jebusites, which all makes up the African nations of Ham, and the Moabites, which are your Chinese, the Egyptians, all right, which Egyptian is Greek for Mizraim. And look, what do we have here? The Edomites, so-called white man. They make up the Gentiles. Also, your Amorites and all of them, the Japanese, the Ishmaelites. When you read Psalms, the 83rd chapter, they're considered Gentiles as well, heathen nations. Now, watch this. Here's the point. Drop down to verse 70. It says what? For both they and their sons have married with their daughters, and the holy seed is mixed with the strange people of the land. This is why it's been expounded upon through prophecy, all right, that we are scattered. We are known as confusion of faces. We are a speckled bird because we don't look like each other. That's why when John the Revelator was prophesying in the book of Revelation, he asked the angel, he says, who is all these people? Who is all these people? Because John the Revelator, when he saw the vision, he was like, what? I don't know who that is. Because they were Israelites. You're going to have Israelites that's not going to look like the so-called Negro, right? Because you got idiots out there talking about, if you ain't so-called black, you ain't Israelite, brother. All right. So the holy seed was mixed in the land. Man, who is this? Agent. They out here bad today. Agents. Anyway, let's continue. So why do I bring all that out? Because this plays a very important part, okay, when Christopher Columbus came to the Americas. All right. But before we read that actual account, you guys first have to learn the history. OK, and this is the reason why people get confused, because they don't take the time to read. You got to read the history in order to understand the mystery. OK, So going back to the article, all right, it says right here, did Columbus have any messianic pretensions? Right? There is decidedly messianic element in Las Casas' literary treatment of him years after his death, but that could be more Las Casas than Columbus. The discoverer himself clearly was a man of enormous ambition, lofty conviction, and unshakable confidence in his own destiny. And though these traits alone hardly make for a messianic pretender, they are given his mystical streak and messianic adore of the age, a step in that direction. It is well known that he developed in his writings and correspondence certain symbolic flourishes of virtually mystical, one is tempted to say, Kabbalistic import, such as his remarkable suggestion. Now, this just goes into other, accounts. So right now, I got a little article here. And Salakia, what I'm going to have to do, I'm just going to read this out loud, because if I zoom in, I'm going to have to keep moving the phone, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to take my time and read this. It says, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and his interpreter was a Jew whose name was Lou, and that is true. Indeed, it is true. Louis de Torres was not the only Jew who sailed with Columbus on the 3rd of August that year. Columbus' navigator and his doctor were also Jews. Now, keep in mind, so that y'all don't get simple, because you know how Jake is, stuttering, right? During the Renaissance period, you have what was called Moranish or Moorish people, but then you also had what they were called Spaniard Jews, who were called swarthy, which is another term of calling so-called black, or they were known as Moreno, okay, which is what we're going to get. And during that time, during the Renaissance period, our people were ruling it, we were put under subjection, because that's where the start of what they call the Black Plague. All right. And just so you guys can understand, when you type in wild man versus Moors, what is it called? Wild man versus war tapestry. That's what it is. All right. So that you guys understand what I'm talking about. This is what happened when we fell from our empire ruling the Byzantine. As you can see, you have the so-called wild man. All right. Esau, Edom. Okay. They came from the Caucasus Mountain, and this is us. This is our people. All right. Some Jews and some Moorish, but they're all the same people. They're Israelites. That's why when you look at places like France and all of them, all of those castles, we built them. This is our heritage that they don't tell you. You see that? This is a tapestry. And if you can, I don't know if I can get that. If you can read, it says the wild man and the Moors, okay, who were Israelites. You see that? And this is all secular history that they leave out, and they don't teach this, okay, because the true Celts, okay, your Celtics, your Lords, what's the other one? Your with the bullhorns and all that stuff. That was our people. We made up those people. All right. That's why we tell y'all even King James was an Israelite. He was a so-called black man and king of Scotland, because our people were ruling for 1,000 years. OK, just in case if anybody wants to try to, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, brother. No, you don't know, Jack. You ain't got it. But let's continue. Now, it says here, his navigator and his doctor were also Jews. All three and two more were Jews who underwent formal conversion to Christianity. Why? Because you have something that was called the Knights of Templar. All right. And this is when you had the Khazarians. All right. The Khazarian Empire, who were so-called white people. They were Edomites, the Idumeans. And when they fell, they came in as the Ottoman Turkish Empire. So you had certain Edomites that worship Islamic faith. Then you had other Edomites under the Roman Catholic Church that worshiped that false Christianity. All right, that they made up. Once again, going back to Wisdom of Solomon, the 14th chapter. Okay, that breaks all of that down. And so what happened was you had Edomites who worshiped under the Ottoman Turk, the Islamic faith, and then you had Edomites who worshiped Christianity. So they used the Knights of Templar as a means, all right, to enslave people. If you didn't worship their so-called Christ, which is a image of Cesare Borgia, even going back to the Greek deity Serapis Christos, that's where that image comes from. For those of you who didn't know that. So what happened was during a Renaissance period under Christopher Columbus, right before, because Spain was ruling, what they did was they took the Knights of Templar and they forward their agenda, spreading that false Christianity. And what happened was when they took down our people, okay, going back to the image, right? When they took down our people, and in order for us to live, we had to come under that doctrine. We had to convert to Christians, so-called Christians, Christianity. OK, this is the lost history that don't tell you. That's why it says they underwent formal conversion to Christianity one day before the voyage, because this is the beginning of Esau Edom's rulership coming back into power. All right. When you read Revelations, the 20th chapter, that goes into that breakdown. OK, now let's keep it moving. It says so all 3 and 2 more were Jews who underwent formal conversions to Christianity one day before the voyage began, but were nevertheless viewed as Jews, both by other Jews and by the Spanish Christians who called Jews converted to Christianity Morenos, meaning swine. All right. Now I have pulled up here so you guys can see. And this is why we always tell you, family, learn how to go into your root etymology of words. All right. They used to always say in the 60s and 70s, you want to hide something from a nigga, put it in a book. Right now, the word Moreno is a Jew or Moor in Spain who, to avoid persecution, publicly profess conversion to Christianity while privately continuing in the practices and beliefs of their old religion. This is the reason why people have a problem when they say, oh, you teaching the so-called white man's book and everything. No, because what you have to understand, they converted our scriptures. That is our history. They converted our scriptures. OK, when the so-called white man came into power, they completely destroyed it, and they corrupted it. That's why you Negroes have a problem. All right. When the factual information tries to come out about who you really are pertaining to the Bible. All right. Now, that word Moreno goes back from the Spanish, probably literally pig, swine, and an expression of contempt. Right. And that's what they were called. All right. So the next time when you try to hear somebody, especially those Mormons or whatever, when they be trying to break it down, now you guys understand the true meaning behind Moreno, because they weren't just Moreno. They were also swarthy, which let me see if I can look that up real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Yep, they got it. Swarthy, dark colored. You see that? Black person, somewhat derogatory. Yiddish from Schwartz, black. And this is what they called our people. Right? It says in the 70s, Die Schwarze blacks have been used, but it was believed that the Negroes have fathomed it, right? Because we were those people going back to the Dark Ages. You see how it all connects when you do your proper research. That's why some of y'all who have last names like Johnson, Washington, all that, where do you think that came from? Because those were European names going back to Germans, Scots, All right. Britain, which at the time was known as Britannica. That's where all of those last names go back to. All right. This is the real history. So it says here, coming back, Columbus included de Torres because de Torres spoke Hebrew. Of course he spoke Hebrew. Why? Because they captured us during the Spanish Inquisition. That's where you get your so-called Sephardic Jews. Okay. It says Columbus evidently believed or wanted to believe that he would meet Hebrew speaking Jews on reaching the other side of the world. What do we have here? Why would Christopher Columbus need a Hebrew interpreter when traveling to what they called back then the New World, which we know today to be the Americas? Why would he bring de Torres, who specialized not only in Hebrew, but also Arabic? And I forget the other language. I think it was French as well, he knew. But why would he need a Hebrew interpreter traveling to Americas? For all you dummies out there that want to sit here and talk about the Latinos and Native Americans aren't Israelites. We're reading secular history, right? So let's continue. Columbus believed, right? He believed he will find the 10 lost tribes of Israel there, and hence thought he would need a Hebrew speaker. And guess what? It's written in his memoirs and his diary. And we're going to get video evidence of Hollywood putting it in a movie called 1492, which shows you that they know what's going on. They know who you are. They always knew the truth. It goes on to say, it should be noted that the voyage of Columbus was financed by 2 Jews. Why did they say that? Remember, I told y'all going back earlier in the live, when you look up the transatlantic slave manifest, you will see that the people who ran it were your so-called Jewish people. That's why we tell y'all, you need to wake up and understand what they are trying to hide from you, because how can you call yourselves the people in the scriptures over in the Holy Land? Where in the Bible did it says that you were going to enslave a group of people that were scattered? That's not what the prophecy stated. So furthermore, reading on, it says, i.e. Louis D. Santiago, Chancellor of the Royal House of King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and Gabriel Sanchez, Treasurer of Oregon, both conversos, of course, when de Torres had landed on Hispaniola. And Salakia to all my Latinos in the comment section, if I'm messing up, all right, these Hispanic words, please forgive me, work through me. It says, he saw a bird which he thought was a peacock and named it Tuki, the Hebrew word for that animal. We therefore call it turkey. Today, Hispaniola is divided into French-speaking Haiti and Spanish-speaking Dominican Republic, which the Dominican Republic, they're also Israelites too. All right, majority of them. So now, here is a depiction of a so-called black man who was a Negro. This is what the Morenos look like, or your swarthy. This is a Marush, okay? And this is how they looked when we were ruling during the Dark Ages, okay? And this is just some evidence to put up just to show y'all, all right? Here's another picture of a Moorish or a Moreno, okay? Showing you our people, okay? Look at them. Okay, this is the history that they don't want you to know. All right, we were ruling before we were taken down. You got people that are always talking about, oh, we come from the motherland of Africa. We do. No. You're more than just some booty scratching African. You're more than that. Okay, we have a history. We have a heritage. We have a culture through Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. That's what y'all not understanding. Okay. So now, here I have here on the screen, this is from Christopher Columbus and the participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese discovered. All right. If you guys want to look it up and get the PDF, let me zoom out of that a little bit. And I'm going to start here. And it says, later in Spain, he read with religious zeal the tract of the Messiah, which was written by the proselyte Samuel Abbas of Morocco for the purpose of converting our Isaac, okay, of sojournity. It had been translated into Spanish in 1339 and into Latin 100 years later. It says this book interested Columbus so much that he excerpted 3 whole chapters. He was also very fond of reading the Bible, okay, in the 4th book of Ezra, which was probably written by a Jew who lived outside of Palestine. According to his own assertion, the incentive that impelled him to plan his discoveries was not a love of science, but his interpretation of the prophecies of Isaiah. Why is that? Let's get the prophecy of Isaiah he was talking about. Let's get Isaiah, and I believe it's chapter 11. Okay, so y'all can see that. Now, what was the prophecies of Isaiah? The restored remnant. Okay, it says Isaiah chapter 11, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord Yahweh, through his son Yahushai, shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which has not happened yet, which shall let you know that this is end time prophecy, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. Okay? Everywhere around the world. So this was the prophecy that he was referring to, showing you that Columbus the dude was smart. He was on his game. Okay? He was on his game. He understood the scriptures. All right? To a certain degree, that is. So going back, it says here, in Portugal, Columbus earnestly conceived the idea of making maritime discoveries by the way of the West. Because remember, as I said, during that time, the western part of the world was not known. Okay? To them, at least. It says he wished to find a new ocean route to the regions of Kathi and Cipango, Salakia, okay, which were reputed to be rich in gold and spices, and also to the realm of the priest King John, whose letter to the Pope Eugene IV, or to the Emperor Frederick III, a Jew, is said to have first published in the middle of the 15th century. It says Henry the Navigator had already conceived a similar plan, and the Portuguese kings never lost sight of it. This bold conception took firm root in the mind of Columbus, mainly through a letter which the great Florentine physician and astrologer Toscanini sent to King João through the monk. Now, let me see if there's anything else here that I wanted to grab for you guys. This going into something else. So you guys can download this PDF on your own time. Once again, it's called Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews. All right. And it's a very good read, goes into a lot of details. All right. So now we're going to play the Hollywood movie. All right. 1492, which anybody can go download and watch it on yourself. All right. And we're going to play this little clip to show you they know exactly who these people are over there. All right. Which was known as the New World, which, today is called America today. So let's get ready to play this.
At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent. The journey takes a year. Or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians.
Now, did y'all catch that first part? Or when he said she'll travel all the way around Africa and it should take about a year or so. Where did we first read that? Let's go back real quick before we finish out the video. All right. 2nd Esdras, chapter 13. And verse 45. This is what happened to the northern kingdom when they tried to leave from King Salmanasar of the Assyrian Empire. Verse 45 it says, "For through that country," meaning that other land, "there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And the same region is called Arsareth." Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, what we're doing is we're linking biblical prophecy. This is how you break down the scriptures and cross-reference. All right, so now let's go back.
At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent. The journey takes a year. Or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way.
Because remember, you had the Ottoman Turks, which represented what? The Islamic faith. And during this time, they were still going against the Knights of the Templar, okay, Christianity.
By sailing west across the ocean sea. The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Now, the priest or the guy who's talking to Christopher, he's saying that distance is unknown. Now, what did we just read earlier? Okay. And let's go back to verse 41. "But they," meaning the northern kingdom, okay, "took this counsel among themselves that they will leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt." That's why he said to Christopher, you can't travel to the west. That part of the region is unknown, because to them, they believed that nobody ever dwelt over there. That's why it was known as a place where mankind never dwelt. Okay? Going back. Just take that back.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands. And you be so certain? The calculations of Tuscany, Maradati, Esdras. Esdras is a Jew.
See that? Now, remember, we just read out of the book that he took 3 chapters out of Tuscalini's writings and also the book of Esdras. That was his superstition, because it wasn't just about finding gold and the spices. It was about finding the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom. They put it right in your face.
So what's first? 2 minutes.
Let me take that back a little bit.
The calculations of Tuscany, Maradati, Esdras. Esdras is a Jew. So what's first? 2 minutes. And already you're a dead man. For telling the truth? Yes. We are burning people for less.
And there you have it. All right. So going back to this video, all right, or this book, we can see by linking the biblical prophecy according to what Ezra saw, where he calculated, okay, what he believed. That is the main reason why he went over there. All right. But there's more, because I know that's not enough for y'all. See, Jake has a hard time of dealing with factual evidence and truth. All right. Because he rather believe his white zaddy. Right. You going to believe what the so-called white man tell you when it's evident and it's right in your face. All right. Now, here we have here, as he came to the Americas, I have here a video of some Native Americans who look like the other heathen nations. And I've done this on purpose to show proof to you guys, okay, of what you're about to see and what you're about to witness. So pay attention.
Insider. People lived in the Americas for around 17,000 years before Columbus arrived in 1492. But evidence suggests that there were earlier contacts with the Vikings, perhaps the Chinese, and maybe even the ancient Hebrews. In this episode of Israel Insider, we look at the surprising and still evolving relationship between Native Americans and the Jewish people. With me in the studio, Chief Joseph Riverwind, the acting principal chief, and Laurelyn Riverwind, the tribal spokesperson of the Northern Arawak Taino Tribal Nation.
Hi, Wade.
How are you today?
Good.
Good. Thank you for having us here.
I want you to start in. Tell me a little bit about your background. You've got a really interesting background, combining Jewish and Native American traditions.
Absolutely. Okay,
how about in English?
Okay. That's a traditional way of beginning the conversation. My name is Chief Joseph of the Arawak Taino Nation, Jaguar clan, and I also have Sephardic Jewish heritage as well.
Okay.
And my people, I'm descended from the Cherokee, the Eastern Band, and my father's side was Bird Clan from Rattlesnake Mountain. And
where is that?
That's on the Cherokee Reservation. It's not actually a reservation, it's Qualla Boundary in Cherokee, North Carolina. And also I have Muskogee Creek heritage. And
Notice the fringes. I wonder where they get that custom from. Let's keep it moving.
my fire sits at Wisabolga is what we would say.
And as you were exploring your ancestry and your customs and traditions, I think you found some interesting commonalities between Jewish and Native American customs. Can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned Christopher Columbus, and he didn't discover anything. My tribe was the one who discovered him wandering lost in the ocean.
Right.
Did you hear that? And that's fact. That's fact.
And 1492 is when the Sephardic Jews were kicked out of Spain. Interestingly enough, it was the 9th of Av.
And notice he said in 1492, those Sephardic Spaniard Jews were kicked out of Spain, which were Maruish or Swarthy, the Morenos. You see that? That's what he's talking about.
Columbus left, and on 9th of Av, he sighted our land. So a lot of the Latin, Spanish-conquered countries have a large population of Sephardic and Native American mixtures there. Mm-hmm. And as we started studying and researching a lot of our traditions, now this isn't all tribes, we don't speak for every tribal nation, but we found similarities in our linguistics. We have Hebrew words in our language, celebrations of new moon festivals.
My people have many things in common as far as the traditions and sacred things concerning, for example, there was a celebration of new moon. There was a 7th day of rest. Mm-hmm. We didn't eat swine. There were cities of refuge. We celebrated 7 sacred feasts during.
Did you hear what she just said? Let me just take that back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit, because I don't think y'all catching it. Let's take it back.
As far as the traditions and sacred things concerning, for example, there was a celebration of new moon. There was a 7th day of rest. Mm-hmm. We didn't eat swine. There were cities of refuge. We celebrated 7 sacred feasts during the year. And so there were many commonalities that we found seemed very similar. And this is chronicled in by a man in the 1700s named James Adair. You can read about it in a book called Out of the Flame.
Yeah, one of many. And there was a man by the name of Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel back in.
Now, just based off us hearing what both he and her broke down, one would have to ask, why didn't these rabbis come out with the truth to say, yeah, Those are some of the people. Because I find it very hard to believe that they were so quick to go to the Ethiopians, which you do have Israelites in Ethiopia, right? But not all the Ethiopians are Israelites. They are heathens. But they were so quick to say, because what Esau likes to do is he'll tell you the truth, but he'll put about 5 or 10 other lies to try to marinate the truth so you really don't get it. So back in the late 80s to early 90s, it was surfacing around. All right, which let me show y'all what I mean real quick. Give me a second. So this is what they don't tell you. Everybody remember this book? Now, if you have a copy of this book, you see here, all of these rabbis, even though the picture is black and white, you got Israelites in that picture, but they are of the stock in Ethiopia. Now, what they did was when the truth was coming out, that the Israelites, they were dark-skinned people, yada, yada, yada. They had to think quick. So notice up here it says Ethiopian Jewish children. So what they try to do is they'll try to account to say, oh, yeah, well, we have black Jews or whatever, but they'll always say Ethiopian. But anytime when the tribes are mentioned in the Americas, they be so quick to downplay it, and then they try to scoop it under the rug. Because that's what Esau Edom likes to do. If you go too deep into this, all right, you'll get slander, false information, misinformation, video will get taken down. And this is why they do this every time. Every time they do this. Right? So let's continue.
Years ago, who also believed that there was a connection between the scattering of the tribes and the First Nations people.
So the theory would be that when the 10 lost tribes were scattered, some of them ended up coming to America. Is that the idea?
It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. Like I said, there's so many things in the traditions, the customs, the spirituality, that just go beyond coincidence.
For example, my people's traditional name, the Cherokee's traditional name for ourselves is Anikatuaya, which means the principal people of Yah.
Now, where did they get that from? Let's take that back. You heard what she said? What was their tradition?
Possibility. Like I said, there's so many things in the traditions, the customs, the spirituality, that just go beyond coincidence.
For example, my people's traditional name, the Cherokee's traditional name for ourselves is Anikatuaya, which means the principal people of Yah.
And the Cheyenne tribe in the Americas called themselves Tsitsitsa, which means people of the fringes.
Really?
And their cousin tribes, the Shoshone.
People of the fringes. Are y'all getting this?
Whose symbol is a rose, we find Shoshana, which is a rose.
Now you've brought with you some traditional instruments. I hope you'll be able to sing for us at the end of the video. You guys, I know, are nationally acclaimed and award-winning musicians. Now
you see, I don't know if y'all can peep, and yeah, they freezing me because this truth is getting hot. Because it's saying over here, I got a great connection, but you know how Esau do. See how he got the little Jewish little thing, right? Now, according to the scriptures, when a man prays or prophesy, you're not supposed to have the top of your crown covered. All right. This right here is an Amalekite. All right. Which is the chief tribe of Edom. All right. Your Khazarians. All right. He is not a Israelite. OK, he's an Edomite. But these individuals over here, all right, is what we would consider confusion of faces. They're Israelites. It has nothing to do with the appearance of the skin. You can tell through the spirit. Okay. And y'all can look this video up on your own. The title of the video is Native American Ambassadors to Israel by Israel Hayam. All right. So if y'all want to go and watch that video in its full, go ahead and do so. All right. But for time's sake, we're going to keep it moving. All right. Now, I got an article here. Okay. From LinkedIn that I stumbled across. All right. From Daniel L. Smith. And let's have a little bit of a read, because now we're going into the Mexicans, the Latinos. All right. Now, before we read this, does everybody understand and see the connections dealing with the tribe of Gad, which are the Native Americans? Does everybody understand and see the connection? Con, beautiful. All right. So now we're going to move on to prove, all right, that the Latinos are our brothers. Right? It says archaeologist Ron Wyatt explains the Aztec nation located in southern Mexico claimed they had lived somewhere in northwestern Mexico or southwestern U.S. for over 1,000 years before migrating south sometime in the thousands or 1100s AD. Most of our knowledge of these people comes from Aztec sacred books known as codices. If I'm saying that right, please forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly, which were kept in their temples and which the native Aztec historians used when they wrote their chronicles. It says in the first half of the 1500s, the Aztec chieftain, I'm not even going to try it, pronounce that, a history relating archives of his family in the ancient writings of his Aztec nation. He claims they were descendants to the Toltecs, who had passed down the following tale. In this account, all right, presents the most complete and accurate account of the flood and the events at Babel that have ever been found in any ancient civilization other than the biblical account. It is found in histories of the Toltecs that this age in first world, as they call it, lasted 1,716 years. That men were destroyed by tremendous rains and lightnings from the sky, and even all the land without the exception of anything. And the highest mountains were covered up and submerged in water. Okay, translated to read 15 cubits. And here they added other fables of how man came to multiply from the few who escaped from the destruction. All right, which if you understand what it's going into, that's talking about Noah. So what you will have to ask is, how did they find these accounts and these ancient stories? All right, in a Toltec. All right. How did they find it? All right. How did they find? Because they'll go on and tell you, oh, those people are not, they don't have any ancestry relations to the ancient hit. No, they're a damn lie. They do, because they are the people. They are the people. That's what they're not telling you. Now, one thing I want to point out here, notice the caption says the Lost Lunar inscription, the Decalogue stone. Now, you'll have some people to say, oh, this has already been debunked. This is really what's the term that they use? It's not accurate information. There's a lot of people that's flogging it off because they don't want you guys to tie two and two together. But let's have a little bit of a read. It says the Lost Lunar inscription is a bridged version of the Decalogue or Ten Commandments, carved into the flat face of a large boulder resting on the side of Hidden Mountain near Los Lunas, New Mexico, about 35 miles south of Albuquerque. It says the language is Hebrew, and the script is the old Hebrew alphabet with a few Greek letters mixed in. The stone was found originally in the 1880s. In 1996, Professor James D. Tabor of the Department of Religious Studies, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, interviewed the late Professor Frank Hebben from 1910 to 2002, a retired University of New Mexico archaeologist who is convinced that the inscription is ancient and thus authentic. Wow, look at that. For all the naysayers out there. It says he reports that he first saw the text in 1933. At the time, it was covered with lynching and patination and was hardly visible. He was taken to the site by a guide who has seen it as a boy back in the 1880s. At the present, the inscription itself is badly chalked and scrubbed up. However, Morehouse compares the surviving weathering on the inscription to that on a nearby modern graffito, dating itself to 1930. He concludes that the Decalogue inscription is clearly many times older than this graffito, and that 500 to 2,000 years would not be an unreasonable estimate of its age. You see that? Now, to prove, for those of you who don't know what it's talking about, okay, this is the stone founded in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And if you understand the Lashawa Kadash, which is the Holy Tongue, this is the Paleo-Phoenician script. Okay, the Paleo-Phoenician script. All right. Now, they also mentioned that when the rabbis dissected this, you have to keep in mind they were speaking Yiddish at the time. But they understood this because this is the original language, minus the vowel points added in by the Masoretes, which is a different topic and a different study we can get into at a later time. But I just wanted you guys to have a quick view of what the actual stone looked like. OK, and everything I'm saying you can look up. All right. If you feel that I'm reaching at any point, everything I brought out, look it up on your own. All right. So just to get back, let me see if there's anything else I want to bring out here. Salakia. Yeah, so let's drop down. We'll start up here. It says further evidence of a Hellenistic or Byzantine influence on Los Lunas. Now, keep in mind, Hellenistic or Hellenization or Byzantine, because remember, if you have the Apocrypha, you will find out the Hellenization through the Maccabees, first and second Maccabees. OK, and if you understand the Holy Roman Empire, the history going into the Byzantine Empire, you'll understand the references point that it's talking about when it's mentioning these names. OK, but just hold on to this word Hellenistic, because we're going to get another video right after this. OK, but it says further evidence of Hellenistic or Byzantine influence on Los Lunas is provided by archaeologist Scumpin in 1989. He analyzes the orthographic errors of the Los Lunas text itself and concludes that it appears to have been written by a person whose primary language was Greek. Did not the scriptures in Acts the 6th chapter called the just to prove, scripture says prove all things, right? Let's grab it. Acts chapter 6, verse 1. I'm going to read it in the KJV. It says, and in those days, when the number of the disciples were multiplied, there arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. Who were the Grecians? If I put this in the NLT, it says, but as the believers rapidly multiplied, there were rumblings of discontent. The Greek-speaking believers complained about the Hebrew-speaking believers, saying that their widows were being discriminated against in the daily distribution of food. Now watch this. If I change this to the NIV translation. In those days, when the number of the disciples were increasing, the Hellenistic Jews, among them complained against the Hebraic Jews. Somebody tell me, what's the difference between the Hellenistic Jews and the Hebraic Jews? You see, this is why people get caught up and don't understand the New Testament. Now, why would the Hebraic Jews neglect the women of the Hellenistic Jews? Because the Hellenistic Jews were your Gentiles. Because they were Hellenized. They were keeping the customs of the other heathen nations. The difference was one spoke in the Greek. That's why they were called Greek-speaking Jews. And the other ones actually spoke in their native tongue. This is why Paul said there's either no Jew nor Greek. He was talking about all 12 tribes, Israelites. But you won't understand that because y'all overlook the history. You got to know the history before you can understand the mystery. This is why you got to go into your word, sometimes go into different translations, because the truth is hidden. Okay? And it's all prophecy. So going back, let's get back to the point at hand. Yes, Scythian, barbarian. Yeah, bring it out, Brother Willis. Bring it out. It says here, he analyzes the orthographic errors of the Los Lunas text itself and concludes that it appears to have been written by a person whose primary language was Greek, who had a secondary but verbal comprehension of Hebrew. Where did we just read that? Oh, yeah, we went back into the scriptures to prove that you had Hellenistic Jews and Hebraic Jews. We just proved that, right? So it goes on to say, the two apparent challenges to this physical evidence of Native Americans being related by DNA to the ancient Hebrew Israelites are A, carbon data, and B, the argument that the Paleo-Hebrew, now when you get that word paleo, all right, paleo just means ancient. That's all it means. So anytime you hear somebody say Paleo-Hebrew, what they're really saying is ancient Hebrew. Okay, remember that. It says the argument that Paleo-Hebrew etches are not made to perfection, as would be expected by sacred Jewish scribes of the ancient era. Okay. But now watch this, because they're going to try to downplay it, right? Because they know to see the truth. That's why the scripture says you can do nothing against the truth, but for the truth, right? But watch what he say to try to downplay it, because he know the truth. It says, note, my defense. That's when you know it's already going to be some BS. My defense of the biblical account of the dispersion stands opposite to this critical theory of carbon data. Right, because carbon data has already been debunked. It doesn't work. And he's going to tell you that. It says, which has been proven non-accurate. That's why when people say anything about when they say things like the Big Bang Theory, measuring with carbon data, all of that is pseudoscience. That's why 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20 tells you what? Let's grab a precept. Let's get 1 Timothy chapter 6. What does it say? Verse 20. Actually, no, that's not what I want. Yeah, I had it right. Salakia, forgive me. I was just in the wrong version. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 20 says what? O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. Avoid profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so-called. In other words, pseudo, which means fake. That's why nobody got time for Esau when he tries to come out with his damn carbon data and Big Bang Theory. All of that is false. It ain't real. Right? So let's go back. Let's read it again. It says, my defense of the biblical account of the dispersion stands opposite to this critical theory of carbon data, which has been proven non-accurate and actually works for biblical evidence, and not against it. Paleo-Hebrew etchings not made to perfection, as explained above, is completely logical. The author who sketched the stone spoke Greek, which was a common as English in the biblical era. even in differing continents. Once again, that is why Paul said there's no difference between Jew nor Greek, because the Greek that he was talking about the Hellenistic Jews. They were your Gentiles. That's why the women were neglected during their daily ministration, because they were not brought up within the customs, which is the law, statutes, and commandments. All right. It says, the author who sketched the stone spoke Greek, which was as common as English in the biblical era, even in the different continents, and knew verbal expressions of Hebrew itself. From my own private research, and regardless of the critics, the indigenous North American Indians are certainly related by DNA to the ancient Hebrew Israelite Jews. Mic drop. Did you see that? From my own private research, and regardless of critics, the indigenous North American Indians are certainly related by DNA to the ancient Hebrew Israelite Jews. Mic drop. They are from the tribe of Gad. So anybody who wants to talk SHIT on here, shut it down. We ain't even trying to hear it. We not trying to hear it. But wait, there's more. Y'all know y'all gonna get fed today. Y'all know I'm gonna feed y'all, right? Y'all know how you know how we do over here, right? We go into secular history, right? Now, we got a little abstract. Sister Shab, yes, it does. Now, y'all remember this video, but to my newcomers on my channel and watching my content, we're going to watch this once more. Now, to the naked eye, this is who you will call a so-called Mexican. So we're going to but we're going to view his understanding on Mexicans, Mayans, Aztecs. And for the newcomers, listen up. And to anybody who's doubting that the Latinos have nothing to do with the Northern Kingdom, let's just watch this video and hear this man out.
And a lot of people are going to say, man, East LA is beautiful. Look at that park in the background. A lot of people who are not from here will say, man, that sounds nice over there. I hear the birds chirping.
Right.
But just give us a little bit of what this neighborhood is really like growing up.
Growing up, it is a beautiful neighborhood. To this day, it's beautiful. You hear the birds. You see families walking around. But like any other place, it has its dark days, or you could say dark people, whether they're from neighborhoods or not. You really got to be careful what you're walking into. And for anybody growing up, like, young guys that are from tagging crews or from other barrios, don't ever underestimate your enemy, or don't ever underestimate, even if they're not your enemy, don't ever underestimate a barrio and its potential to harm you or do damage. Know what you're walking into, know where you're going, and never disrespect anybody, because anybody could be pushed to that limit. So even though things may look all nice and fancy right here, there could be 100 guys show up right now, or at any point, at any time, wherever you're at, whether it's at a gas station, supermarket, and push that issue with you.
A lot of people, when it comes to the Maravillas, they always ask, are they Sureños or not Sureños? It seems a little confusing for some people. Can you just clear that up?
So the difference between us is we never put the 13 on us. We're just, we're Southerners. I mean, there's no denying that. When it comes to being busted, we ride with our people. We always have. Even when we did have the green light and homies, went upstate, we were riding with the raza, our people. So, as far as that, we don't have that 13, and, how could I put it? we always just been Maravilla. That's what we represent. We don't represent nothing else, and that's it. We're from Maravilla.
Okay, and you mentioned the indigenous language of was it the Aztecs or the Mayans?
Both of them.
Both of them.
Now pay close attention to what he says.
Connected to an old Hebrew,
ancient Paleo Hebrew.
Ancient. So does that mean that language?
He said that the Mayans and the Aztecs language connects to the old Paleo Hebrew, which I said Paleo means what? Ancient, right? Let's continue.
That was indigenous to what Mexico and Central America is today was a Semitic language?
Yeah, so what the schools teach you is an indoctrination. You get inducted into this indoctrination of what they want to call you or what they tell you that you are. So for instance, our people get called Hispanic, right? So Hispanic, not knowing what that term means, we call each other Hispanics, but that was under the Spaniard captivity. Yep. When the Spaniards came in 1492 and, raped, robbed, and pillaged, the people in Mexico.
Did you hear that? And we just read that account going back to Cristobal Colon, which you know him to be Christopher Columbus.
How they knew you were under that captivity was by calling you an Hispanic, how you belong to a family of a Spaniard that took you worked on their plantation, you were given their last name, like my last name, Ayala. That comes from whatever captivity my family got taken into, and maybe we would have to work on fields, whether it was picking, tobacco or...
Now, who does this sound like? What other nation of people this happened to? Oh, yeah, that's right. How about you so-called Negroes? For those of you who claiming that the Mexicans ain't got nothing to do with the children of Israel, guess what? Let's get a precept real quick before we play the video again. Let's get Jeremiah, which this prophecy was fulfilled. Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 33 says what? Thus said the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel, northern kingdom, and the children of Judah, southern kingdom, were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. That started with Christopher Columbus and 1492. Then fast forward to 1619, they came and gathered us up and threw us on the damn plantations. Thus, this prophecy was fulfilled during the transatlantic slave trade. There was no way for us to escape the curses going back to Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and Joel, the 3rd chapter, because it started with the sub-Saharan slave trade, which the Arabs and the Africans was selling us to the so-called white man. Then you had the Portuguese, the Portuguese, and then the British. And this is all biblical prophecy. So let's go back. Let's continue listening.
Or whatever that family had us doing, that's what we did. Now, Latino is different. Latino's under the Grecian captivity. That's if you were Latino, or how they differentiated the both of them is Latino actually meant that your bloodline dated back to a Grecian or a Greek.
Hence, Hellenistic Jews. Hellenistic Jews. Greek-speaking Jews. Let's continue.
And people that are from down south, Guatemala, El Salvador, just South America, they're not Latino. Their dads aren't Greek. We're still of this brown race. Like they call, black people or African Americans that are here now Africans, and they're not from Africa. They actually...
Woo! Hey, you Negroes awake? Are y'all listening? You Negroes, let me play that again, boy. Since y'all want to call yourselves Egypt's, Kemet, and all of that nonsense, let me play that again.
Their dads aren't Greek. We're still of this brown race. Like they call, black people or African Americans that are here now Africans, and they're not from Africa. They actually just got taken into captivity in Africa while fleeing Israel.
Woo! And to back that up, we're going to read it again because I believe I read it yesterday. Let's prove what he said through secular history. Let's prove that. Now, I'm going to step away from my Latino heat, right? And you Negroes, listen up. In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem in 70 AD, right? General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. You Negroes ain't African. You're Israelites. Why did we fled into Africa? Well, it tells you one. Fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black, so-called black Jewish slaves. It didn't say whites. Didn't say anything about that. So am I reaching? We just read secular history. Now let's go back. Let's take that back a little bit once more. And let's hear it from his mouth, what he just said.
That are from down south, Guatemala, El Salvador, just South America, they're not Latino. Their dads aren't Greek. We're still of this brown race. Like they call, black people or African Americans that are here now Africans, and they're not from Africa. They actually just got taken into captivity in Africa while fleeing Israel. Africans are Hamites. They're from the tribe of Ham. So they're just a different people, and that's why people in Africa don't accept the blacks that are here, the so-called blacks that are here in America.
Woo! Hold up. Got to get another book for y'all. Wait a minute. All right, let me take that back once more.
So they're just a different people, and that's why people in Africa don't accept the blacks that are here, the so-called blacks that are here in America, because they say those aren't our people, And history, they won't teach you from the tribe of Ham.
Salakia.
And they're not from Africa. They actually just got taken into captivity in Africa while fleeing Israel. Africans are Hamites. They're from the tribe of Ham. So
now notice he said Africans are Hamites. So what we're going to do, this is the Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. We're going to read the definition of Ham. The youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood, he became the progenitor, meaning the forefather of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Those are your African nations. So you Negroes, you are not African. You're not African. So stop calling yourself African American because you ain't African. Let's continue.
They're just a different people, and that's why people in Africa don't accept the blacks that are here, the so-called blacks that are here in America.
Did you hear that? Them African booty scratching tribes, they don't like you. You are not the same people.
Because they say those aren't our people, And history, they won't teach you. In my era, they taught us a little about Aztecs and Mayas and Incas, just a little bit, but they never tell you how our people got here. They never tell you. We came from somewhere. They'll never tell you, how we read the stars. We used a thing called cenotes, which were these ponds, reflection ponds, to read the stars. While Columbus was looking up at the stars, trying to read them, trying to find these holy people that were that had a blessed land that was promised to them, full of riches and rich soil and all this and that.
And what was that land that he was referring to? Because Brother Willis, find that scripture. I believe is in. Matter of fact, hold on. Hold on. Bear with me. Oh, you son of a. Hold up, y'all. Hold up. I gotta find it real quick. Is it First Chronicles? I want to say 13. Or maybe it's second. Hold on. It might be Second Chronicles. Yeah, that's pretty much, he was reading it upside down. Yep. There's a scripture that tells you this is why. Now, remember that it was said, and the brothers can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was said the Incas, the Mayans, the Aztecs, they specialize in reading the stars and stuff like that. Well, Issachar was known for that. And there's a scripture, if I can find it, let me see. Salakia, bear with me. I might have to find it later, but there's a verse, and I believe it's either in First Chronicles or Second Chronicles, where Issachar was known to look up at the stars in heaven to tell if there was going to be a famine. Ooh, the Ak, he already on it. All right, First Chronicles 12. Okay. All right, I got to get this for the family. First, the water for that. Yes, the water, brother. First Chronicles chapter 12, verse 32. And the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment. You see that? Because the reason why they had the understanding of times, that's what they were gifted at. So they were able to read the stars of heaven and everything else like that. Because they can look up at the stars and tell you if there was going to be a famine in the land, if they were going to be fruitful in their crops, all of that. They had all of that wisdom. Yep, brother, right on it. Yep. That's why the Aztec made the count. Exactly. Spot on. The water brother for that. And everything we're saying, you see how it all lines up with biblical prophecy, right? It all lines up.
He was looking up at the stars, and he didn't know how to use the geometry using the reflection ponds, and that's how we got here. Our real name is not Aztec, it's Issachar.
Woo! But y'all missed a little nugget. Woo!
Our real name is not Aztec, it's Issachar. That's our real name. They gave us the name Aztec because it means people of time, because we kept time in numbers.
Yep.
And so that's where that came from. So it's really important to know your history, you know?
Now, are any of your tattoos reflective of that ancient culture?
Yep. One of them is the high priest right here, which you would go to, to seek wisdom, either medicine or sacrificing, stuff like that.
Now, where do you think he got that from? In the law. All right. Now, I pray that Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, opens, the mind of this brother, because, according to the law, we're not supposed to be tatting up our bodies. So hopefully Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is dealing with this brother, and I hope he has repented. All right. But nevertheless, everything that he's saying, where do you think he got it from? Come on now, somebody.
It's about human sacrifice?
Yeah.
Which was pretty common in the 11th, 12th century?
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of people don't know why they would sacrifice, for worshiping the sun, but most of it was young children for the benefits of the adrenalized blood. When they would drink the blood, and it was used as adrenochrome, and that's why you have a big indictment today with a lot of people that got busted.
Did you hear what he said? Now, remember what happened at the start of 2020 when you had people, remember Ellen DeGeneres' show shut down? They put an ankle lock brace on her. Oprah was on house arrest because all those people, all right, they got found out with the you know what. And I'm not even going to say it because I don't want this live to get pulled down. But because I went too much into detail on here, I can't post this up on YouTube because the moment this video, if I post this whole lesson on YouTube, they're going to take my channel down because I exposed too much of the truth. That's why I do these sort of lessons on TikTok and then I do other lessons on YouTube. Because if I was to do this live on YouTube, they'll pull my channel down.
For this stuff, and now they're finding out what they were doing. Like Ellen DeGeneres got busted, Tom Hanks.
See that?
You got Obamas that got busted. You got Oprah Winfrey that got busted, and they're all part of this whole thing when it comes to adrenochrome and drinking that adrenalized blood and the benefits of keeping you youthful.
When it comes to those human sacrifices that they did back in, let's say, the 11th, 12th, 13th century, would you say that was pretty brutal, looking at it in today's terms? Because it's murder,
right? And
someone is losing their life, but it was pretty common back then. How do you rationalize that, ethically and morally?
So I think morally and ethically, it's bad all around. I mean, who wants to die or say, hey, kill me? But back then, a lot of the kings would manipulate the people and say, if you want this blessing or whatever, offer up your firstborn or bring one of your child that's pure. And they would do that.
Wow.
And for those who want to get in touch with you, whether it's tattooing or they just want to holler at you, how do they find you online?
All right, so y'all can look up the video. Mexicans are Israelites from the tribe of Issachar. All right, and you can go and watch that on your own time. All right, but he said a lot within 8 minutes of that video. He dropped some gems. He dropped some history. Okay, so there it is right there. So now, because recently somebody came out and said, Puerto Ricans, they ain't Israelites. You guys are just... Yeah, okay. Well, what do I have here? August 17, 2019. 800 ancient stones with Hebrew writing in Puerto Rico, which, correct me if I'm wrong, they are Ephraim. Authenticated. Let's have a little read. It says a remnant of ancient stones, 20 of 800, made its way halfway across the world, solving a 3,500-year-old mystery. What did these stones whisper about the pre-Columbian indigenous people of the island of Puerto Rico? After rigorous academic testing, anthropologists, historians, academics, and millions of Puerto Ricans finally have scientific evidence that reveals the language of the stones. Growing up in the mountains of Barican, Puerto Rico, my grandfather told me about some very unique stones, which were part of our ancient Taino Indian history. Forgive me if I pronounced that wrong. These are rare stones where in the care of one of our greatest principal chiefs, Issaac, who when Columbus stumbled across our Taino people in 1492, was the principal chief of my home island of Barican, Puerto Rico. Knowledge of these stones first came to light when a very sick Taino woman who had tried everything from indigenous herbal remedies to ceremonies lay on her deathbed, compelled to tell a secret her family had carried for generations. She sent runners to find someone in the church who would listen. Why she chose the church, we'll never know. But a monk named Jose Maria Nazaro Nasser Jose, all right, why cancel came to her beside. What this elder revealed to this monk changed the historical narrative of our precious island. There in her tiny Bahio thatched roof home, the monk interceded for the old woman's healing. Then she told him her family secret, a secret that went back to the time of Issaac, the principal chief of Barican, the Taino Indian name for Puerto Rico, which means the house of the great valiant Lord. Her secret revealed were to find a hidden stash of stone figurines inscribed with strange symbols and carvings of an ancient people that some called Hibaro, who lived in the mountains of the island and still have descendants who call themselves by this name to this day. Nazario had been educated at the University of Salamanca. His studies had included ancient languages, and he was amazed at what he saw. After comparing the writing on the stones to others from around the world, he came to his conclusion. This writing was a form of ancient Hebrew. Because of his religious background, this fueled the possibility that a remnant of the lost tribes of Israel had settled on this island. Let me read that one more time. This writing was a form of ancient Hebrew. Because of his religious background, this fueled the possibility that a remnant of the lost tribes of Israel had settled on this island. See that? And then it just goes into the stones. This one says here, it was well known on the island that Joana Morales was the last descendant of the principal chief. Her story is still told among the mountain people in the interior of the island who still identify as Hibaro, a word that is Taino means people of the mountains, but which bears a strange resemblance to the word Hebrew. You see that? So at the end of the day, you cannot refute, all right? You can't refute what's being told in here, man. You can't refute it, right? Let's get this real quick. It says the stones are inscribed in a language script previously unknown to linguists with expertise in Phoenician and Proto-Hebrew. Expert linguists deciphered the writing to be a mixture of Hebrew with a little bit of Phoenician and an unknown script using carbon-14 test on a red paint found on stones. They have been dated to approximately 900 BC. Wow. The water for that, brother. I will check that out. So, yeah. You can't refute. I done brought out so much information. Nobody can rebuttal or refute the information I just brought out. Nobody can refute all this information. So that means your Puerto Ricans, your natives, they are children of Israel as well. So let's grab this one last video and we're going to nip it in the bud. Enjoy.
He's a guy who surveyed the Newark earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box. It was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented.
It's not for her. That's all that was.
By the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here. At first, they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments. Now, this is another piece. Block Hebrew, they said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismiss the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee. Since it came from Cherokee country, they didn't realize that.
Notice he said it came from a Cherokee country. Now, remember what the Native Americans said, how they had Shemitic languages, right? Remember those two? All right. Native Americans that we viewed earlier. Just keep all of this in mind.
That it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about?
Esau. I'm sorry. Esau.
Where is that history?
Woo.
Brought here by Hebrew people in search of a new promised land. I want to know if this stone, inscribed with the Ten Commandments, might have been kept inside the ark, or was it left behind as a clue that one of the Bible's most sacred artifacts is right here in the United States?
This is the Decalogue stone with the Ten Commandments written on it on all sides of it. And this is a stone box that the Decalogue was found in.
Okay.
So when it was found, it was enclosed in this box, and you couldn't even see the stone inside. The box is carved out inside exactly to fit the Decalogue stone.
Who's that guy?
Well, this figure here on the front that's wearing a robe and a turban and holding either tablets or a breastplate, and over his head in these Hebrew letters it says Moshe or Moses.
Oh.
So must be Moses.
Okay, that's Moses, all right.
Who delivered the Ten Commandments.
Ten Commandments, okay. It seems to pass the scrutiny of the skeptics as far as the Hebrew text and the language. So now I'd like to try to add some evidence to this whole discussion. This thing is polished after it was carved. It's scratched like I would expect. But it fits snug.
So the box in itself took an awful lot of work. I mean, if it was really a forgery, you wouldn't go to all that much trouble to make a box for it. So I think that speaks to its authenticity, that someone really was, this was very important to someone.
This is a lot of work, and it's polished. It's got the detailing of the grooves. It wasn't made, as far as I can tell, from modern machinery. Geologically, I don't see any problems here that would make these things obvious hoaxes. So the skeptics have rejected this.
Well, that's been a factor, but Hebrew is an odd thing to find here.
The fact that it's odd doesn't mean that it's not genuine. What it boils down to is really the problem with these artifacts is that the academics don't like them because they don't fit the paradigm. And unfortunately for them, you can't dismiss things simply because you don't like them.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Let's play. What did he just say? Because it doesn't fit the paradigm. In other words, the narrative, that veil that they've casted out on the whole world, because they told you, Negroes, that you would never amount to nothing, that you were black, that you was niggas. All right. They called the Latinos wetbacks, spit spans. All right. They wanted you to believe the narrative that they spewed. But what did he just say?
Right. And so the evidence to me seems clear. There's no reason not to accept these as genuine, legitimate artifacts.
All right.
Salakia, take that back a little bit more.
I think that speaks to its authenticity, that someone really was, this was very important to someone.
This is a lot of work, and it's polished. It's got the detailing of the grooves. It wasn't made, as far as I can tell, from modern machinery. Geologically, I don't see any problems here that would make these things obvious hoaxes. So the skeptics have rejected this.
Well, that's been a factor, but Hebrew is an odd thing to find here.
The fact that it's odd doesn't mean that it's not genuine. What it boils down to is really the problem with these artifacts is that the academics don't like them because they don't fit the paradigm. And unfortunately for them, you can't dismiss things simply because you don't like them.
You can't dismiss things simply because you don't like them. So, yeah, that concludes, all right, my topic. Got to give all praise to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Ba'Shem Rakak Dash. And I like to say the water, all right, to all the sisters and brethren joining me